this point in time, I'd like to pass the proceedings to Tom Fox, Executive Director of the fraternity, who will give a report of the fraternity.
All right, thank you very much, Evan. And thank you again to everyone who's joining us today. I truly appreciate you all taking time out of your Saturday to learn more about what we're doing here at Psi Upsilon. Everyone should have received a packet of materials in advance of this meeting. If not, if you go to psiu.org and if you click on the page for the summit, you can download it there. But I'm just going to hit a couple bullet points of some of the materials that are included. Just walk through on page 93. You'll see the beginning of the chapter reports where we review the membership statistics from each chapter, showing the trends in Psi Upsilon overall. I believe we were at the highest amount of undergraduate membership we had ever seen as a fraternity. We've seen a slight decline, especially this semester, not a significant one. The biggest change was the fact that the spring number of chapters never initiated new member classes.
Tom, you're breaking up a little bit.
Pause for a second. And
all right, hopefully you can hear me better now. All right, apologies for that. This is something else that's been happening a lot during this time period. Learning how to better use online conferencing. But if you'll go to the next part of the section on page 96 is our usual report of the academic summary of the chapters. I won't lie, we weren't able to collect much of anything in the spring. A number of campuses either created more of a pass-fail program. In some cases, some campuses completely switched over to pass-fail, and a lot of discussions about how that will be reflected in GPAs are happening right now. I expect we will have academic reports from last spring some point in the fall for every campus that reports, but it's probably going to take a little time. The next part of the chapter services section shows the philanthropic and service performed by chapters. If you go to page 102. Now, the great thing here is you'll notice, actually, our chapters raised more money per average member than they did in the prior year, as well as, and service hours remained about the same. As Evan pointed out in his annual communications, a lot of chapters were able to find a way to respond to this environment and find some very meaningful ways to give back to their communities. And then following that is our chapter reports, which has always been a very important part of Psi-U throughout the years. Traditionally, many years ago, chapters used to write one another to talk about what their actions were over the course of the year. And at some point, long before any of us were involved, we pivoted to collecting them together and sharing these reports during the annual convention. And despite not having a convention, we wanted to keep that tradition. Earlier in the materials, on page 36, you'll see the unaudited financial statements of the fraternity for the last fiscal year. And well, we did suffer a loss due to the COVID-19 shutdown of campuses. It was much less than we anticipated towards the end of March. And the good thing is, if you look at the balance sheet and the overall net assets of the fraternity, we're still in a very positive place. Creating a budget for 2020-21 was not an easy task. I worked very closely with Tim Zepp, as well as the entire executive committee of the Executive Council, to look at different scenarios of what might possibly happen. And it's one of the reasons why this is difficult is we can't go back to any time in recent history and find any comparable times within the fraternity environment. I mean, I didn't bother to dig up the records of the fraternity from 1918 to see what happened during that flu epidemic. But and that's the thing, this isn't just what happened during a recession. That said, I've been working with other fraternal leaders and coming up with where we believe we will see chapter membership and campuses. Keeping in mind that every campus will respond differently and even in different parts of the country, whether we're in an urban area or a rural area of the country. Overall, we're predicting about 35% less returning members than we would in a normal year. And then on top of that, about the same loss of new members over the course of the year. We know there will be some difficulties transitioning to transitioning to recruitment with less face-to-face interaction. Yet, from talking to so many undergraduates and what we've already heard back, there are solutions to this, and there are opportunities in this environment. I've really, really been impressed by the discussions I've been able to have with our undergraduate chapter leadership and how they're responding. Well, there have been different responses on different campuses. There is a lot of optimism about what a fraternity can be next year, because the main value that we're founded on, that of friendship, has never been more necessary than it is today. And that moves into our chapter support for next year. One of the things we learned in March, moving to a remote-based, for lack of a better term, coaching program, is actually we were finding we were having more contact with our undergraduate leadership than when we relied on in-person visits and traveling to campuses. Whether it was the regular town hall meetings we set up with archons, and then the separate town hall meetings for chapter presidents and advisors, it allowed the leaders to collaborate with one another and share best practices about what was working for them. And honestly, there's so much of an advantage with being able to do that. I don't anticipate us returning to in-person visits, definitely not in the fall, unless it would be absolutely necessary. In fact, a number of campuses have reached out and asked staff members of fraternities and sororities, we'd appreciate it if you took this fall off and not visited in person. But that doesn't mean we can't continue programs like this and actually bolster them. As many of you know, we have a goal-setting retreat called the Commitment to Excellence. We can pivot that. I was going to try to get through this report without saying pivot once, but I couldn't do that. Sorry, Matt Eckenrode. But we can move that into a remote platform and actually make it possibly more successful than when we were in person, especially being able to get advisors involved that might not be geographically located with their chapter, and it makes it difficult to visit in person. But as we're learning just today, and by so much we do through Zoom, geographic boundaries mean less today than they did many years ago. But we have recruitment, our recruitment academies. We can perform that remotely very successfully, whether we're talking about risk management or overall organization. And most importantly, keeping up the small one-on-one, small group discussions between staff and leadership. That personal connection is really an advantage of a fraternity our size. And again, in this environment, I think we're doing a better job of it than we even were just a couple of years ago when we were relying on the face-to-face connection. I'm not going to pretend, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily better, but it is something that when it's time to reopen and go back to full face-to-face visits and in-person visits, what we've learned through this is definitely going to complement that programming. In addition, and this is primarily for our undergraduate brothers that are on the call, we're looking to bolster something we call the Undergraduate Advisory Board. Traditionally, that's 2 undergraduates who are elected at convention and attend executive council meetings to give input and help put things through the lens and perspective of the undergraduate members. Everyone who applies this year, there's no reason why we wouldn't keep regular meetings with everyone who's interested in being involved, not just the 2 elected members of the Undergraduate Advisory Board, and keeping up more meetings in between the Executive Council meetings. There is if you look at the news section of the website, there's an application form, and we've sent that to every undergraduate that we have an email for. But I encourage you, if you're passionate about Psi U and would like to get more involved, please fill that out. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. But I think there's a real opportunity here to actually make this a better program than it was in the past. I want to take a moment also to say thank you, especially to a number of people. Our advisors and alumni presidents, I've had a lot of discussions with you over the last few months. And some of the discussions have been difficult because we're all concerned about the future, but the passion and time that so many of you put into our fraternity really hardens me. Later today, we're going to have the annual meeting of the Executive Council. At that point, Evan Terry will be transitioning from president to president emeritus, and Jeremy McEwen will be taking over. And Evan, I really want to thank you for all the time and effort you put into Psi Upsilon and supporting the fraternity and supporting me as executive director. You became pretty much right out of college, you were put on the executive council and have had a very long experience to it. So your emeritus status is well deserved, but it has not gone unnoticed, all the work you've put in. And Jeremy, you've been a friend since you were Archon of the Ada chapter in I believe it was 2006, 2007. I'm going to get the years a little bit messed up too. When you were a grad student in Columbia, and I randomly ran into you on the street one day, and I won't get into the story, but he did not identify himself right away, and I got a little bit scared. It was late at night. And then to your involvement on the board, even taking the time to stop by our convention when you were trekking the Appalachian Trail and stop by Lehigh to make sure you made the convention that summer. But every executive council member, you've put in great time, and we've been meeting more. So I appreciate all your involvement in the fraternity. And then also to our foundation board. Leading it off, I can't say enough great things about Alex Senchek. He is practically, I mean, he really is a member of the staff right now for all the time he's putting in. And one of the reasons we're so successful is the tone he sets. He's truly someone who leads by example and never asks of anyone what he's not willing to do himself. I've been very impressed by it, and again, very thankful. And every foundation board member, and there's a number who have joined just in the last year or two. It has not gone unnoticed, all the new blood that you've put into the organization. Finally, my fellow staff members, this has been a difficult couple of months, but the support has been outstanding. Beth Ann Taylor, I can't say enough great things. I mean, I'll just give an example. She was here early this morning getting the internet fixed in the office so we can help make this happen. Truly, for lack of a better term, a Jane of all trades who, whatever problem we have, gets thrown at her and she fixes it. So thank you so much. Jonathan Chaffin, the talent you bring to this organization does not go unnoticed, but what especially impresses me is the passion. It is truly, truly wonderful. Ashley Stein has been promoted to Director of Member Services. Over the past, she's been on staff for just under a year now, but her organization, attention to detail, has been tremendous. And we've never been in a better place dealing with reports from chapters, and I'm excited to expand her program to start working with alumni organizations and get those groups to better utilize Member Planet. And then we just hired Jason Allen as Director of Chapter Services, and on paper, I couldn't have asked for a better candidate when I first looked at his resume. Over 10 years of experience in various locations, and then when you get to know him, the enthusiasm and care he's going to bring to Psi U, I'm so excited to have you join our team right now. David Holgate, Tejas Narian, Kathy Lefebvre, all people who served on the staff over the last year who really helped us. Kathy in the fall, and then David and Tejas in the spring. David and Tejas especially responding to some of these one-on-one meetings with chapters. It was really, really a wonderful experience. And one final thing to bring up that, we talk a lot about the worries of what 2020, 2021 will look like, the uncertainty around COVID-19 and what will happen with our campuses. But one wonderful thing that happened last week at the Executive Council, and it really has been something that's been working on for a year, is we're going to be finally able to bring back the Phi Beta chapter at the College of William and Mary. I've been working with a number of the alumni over the last couple of years, and I need to highlight Steve McLeaf and Christian Klein. The three of us had a brunch in Northern Virginia. Oh God, it might have been 2.5 years ago now, where we started to talk about what it would look like to return to that campus. And they put their money where their mouth was and started getting alumni organized, and has bolstered a great alumni organization, getting many members back involved. Another alumnus I need to highlight, John Hollis, who was helping support the campus and doing some fundraising for the, and I apologize, I forget the exact name of the mental health group on campus, but keeping alumni involved that way. To see that growth has been wonderful. And I think somewhere, and we won't embarrass them and make them say anything today, but I believe the current president of that undergraduate group, Brighton Mead, is on this meeting right now. Actually, pretty much my last visit it was the last week of February, I was out at William & Mary and had dinner with Brighton and some of the other undergraduates. And I can tell you, they're going to make great members of Psi Upsilon, and this is going to be a successful return. So I really, really want to thank you all. And again, this has been a great example of the hope we have during this time. So with that said, Evan, that concludes my report. I'm more than happy to make myself available to any individuals as we prepare for the fall, and many of you will be hearing directly from me. So I'll pass it off back to you.